Guys, thanks so much for joining us for another Otto webinar. My name's Dr. Edmund Farrer. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Otto. For those of you that are joining for the first time, welcome. It's great to have you with us. For those of you that are coming back, have been to previous webinars, thanks so much for coming back again. We've got a really exciting and hopefully useful webinar for you this morning, depending on where you are. So I'm joined by Thomas Coltman. So Thomas, I will pass over to you in a second, but just quickly, by way of introduction, Thomas is someone, I think Thomas and I first spoke over 7 months ago. And Thomas was really struggling with his tinnitus at this point. And we've been working with Thomas for kind of the last 6 months. So Thomas is going to share his experience both with tinnitus and with habituation. So if you have questions about habituation, or you're wanting to hear from someone that has made really good progress with habituation and has been able to tune out tinnitus, this is your opportunity. Thomas, thanks so much for joining us. Where are you joining from?
Hi, great to be with you. I'm joining from Penarth, which is just outside Cardiff in Wales. So
awesome, great. Well, I hope it's the weather's actually not too nice here in London. I hope it's slightly nicer for you over in Cardiff.
Yeah, I think we're getting the better weather today, but we've had about 2 weeks of rain, so it's about time we had a clear day.
Great. Well, so Thomas, let's just jump straight in. So guys, we're going to do the format of this is going to be Thomas and I'm just going to ask Thomas some questions about his journey. That's going to be for the next kind of 10-15 minutes. For those of you watching, if you have questions for Thomas, please pop them in the Q&A. This is your opportunity to learn from someone that has habituated. So don't miss out. Put your questions in the Q&A and we'll get round to them, and then I will be able to ask your questions directly to Thomas. If you have any general questions about tinnitus or habituation, you can ask those as well, but I'm going to prioritize questions for Thomas. So and then at the end, I've got a really exciting special offer for you guys. So stick around to the end. And if you want to learn from Thomas and perhaps go through what Thomas has gone through, then stick around to the end and I'll tell you a bit more about that. So let's get stuck in. Thomas, tell us about your journey with tinnitus before Otto.
My journey with tinnitus, it's sort of divided into two. Sorry, I'm going to put the date 2016 out there. Tinnitus existed before then and it existed after then. Before then, it was something that I can't tell you when it sort of occurred. In some respects, I've always felt like I've had a noise there which was so inconsequential, but it just felt normal to me. And that's really since I was a teenager that I was probably aware of it. And then probably it was a little bit stronger. I'm a musician, and when I was at music college, we became a bit more aware about sound. So I was aware that, and sometimes it'd be a little bit stronger, but then lots of people said, oh, that's just because the orchestra was too loud or something like that today. So, and that was a while ago before ear protection was really, the hot topic. So I sort of carried on fine. I might go to a nightclub when I was much younger, and just not like the loud noise, but I never saw it as a triggering thing. But then in 2016, I was doing an opera contract, and there was a tenor there in the chorus of this one of the operas, and he had really bad tinnitus and sort of hearing issues. Hearing issues and tinnitus is sort of hearing loss and tinnitus. And I suddenly became aware of this thing. So in a way, for me, something that had been there anyway, I suddenly became aware of as an entity, and there was a lot of conversation about it. And I think I became a lot more stressed about it. I was weirdly rereading some messages I sent someone at that time, and realized how much it had impacted me then. But I didn't necessarily think I needed treatment or anything like that. I somehow sort of carried on. I just tried to have a bit more downtime, tried to do things to help. if the noise was a bit too much, or just went, oh, well, that's just because it was a loud opera and I had lots of people singing around me. And that sort of carried on. So that carried on for about 3 years. So it was prevalent, but I somehow sort of managed with it. And then in about 2020, so this was actually during basically the pandemic, it just became really bad, and I started getting very concerned that I was getting hearing loss or something like that. I was doing a lot of teaching as well, or had been, and lots of people singing right in my ear, and I hadn't been careful enough. So I went to a specialist here in Cardiff, Sonia, and she recommended the Otto app, which and so I signed up, did the Otto app, and that was amazing. I sort of went through a course of it, and that sort of solved it. But I think the thing is, I did like a 2-month, I sort of went for it, sort of solved it in a way, but then maybe didn't solve it truly. And because of the pandemic, I wasn't surrounded, I was able to monitor my noise anyway. And then at the end of last year, well, at the beginning of 2022, it started coming back, and I was getting really, or I became more aware of it again, and I was getting really stressed about it. So towards later in 2022, I sort of really went back onto the app and started doing the app again. And then we started having conversations, and then that's how I ended up going for the therapy. So that's sort of the arc of my tinnitus.
Thanks for taking us through that, Thomas. So I think what you've explained there is actually quite reflective of what many people experience with tinnitus, and certainly what I've experienced. Had it for perhaps many, many years, but not really been a problem. Maybe just kind of very, very quiet. And there's maybe a trigger or something that happens, or either gradually over a few months, or in some cases suddenly the tinnitus gets a lot worse, and then perhaps gets worse again, like in your case in 2020. And it actually starts to become very, very unpleasant and very difficult to manage. And I suppose that's kind of the time when you start to feel overwhelmed. You think, God, how am I going to cope with this? How am I going to live with this thing? And many people here that are watching will empathize with that. So what did you try? What kind of treatments did you try before you came to Otto? What kind of stuff had you tried?
The one thing I forgot to say is I did see, so back in 2016, 17, I went to my doctor, and then they referred me to, I sort of had to really pursue it, but managed to get a referral to see an ENT specialist who basically looked at my ears and did a couple of things, said, oh, well, your hearing seems to be fine, although they weren't particularly thorough tests, or not like I've had since. And then I said, well, what about the tinnitus? And they said, well, you'll sort of have to deal with it. Here's a couple of things to look at. And I'd already looked at them because I'd done a bit of Googling at least. So that didn't really help much. So in terms of the treatments, the main thing I had available was trying to find background noises to a certain extent, or using radio more, things like that. In terms of sleep, I can't sleep with noises. I'm one of these people that can't sleep with noises. So I really had to get some decent earplugs. I sort of managed to sleep with the sound until 2020, 2021. I just managed to sleep with it rather than without. So
yeah, that, I mean, when you said, you were told that you just kind of have to get on with it, you just have to kind of learn. That's, if I could ask everyone here that's listening or watching, what has been their experience with their doctor or the audiologist, I think probably 90% of them have been told something along the lines of, shrug their shoulders, sorry guys, you need to go away and manage it on your own, which isn't true. It's not true. There's loads of things you can do for tinnitus, as we'll talk about in a few minutes. So you've kind of been working with the Otto app for a bit. You said you worked for it very quickly, and then you kind of decided to join our one-to-one program. What kind of expecting to that? Why did you join? Why did you sign up?
I think because tinnitus is affecting every single part. And although I was doing the app, going through the app again, and because the app had changed a little bit over the sort of year and a half as well, and there's even more stuff there. So it was really good to sort of go through it again with a fresh mind. But I sort of came to the feeling that I still needed some more intervention. Like there were certain things, and maybe it's the sort of quite academic part of my brain or something that I was like, oh well, this is now. I was almost overanalyzing stuff rather than it being extracted out of me. If that makes sense. I'm trying to talk in ephemeral words here, but I was like, oh well, yeah, this makes sense. Like ticking boxes a little bit rather than, and I needed someone else external to sort of look and reflect back maybe and see really what I was doing, where my thought patterns were going, and why that might be causing, and what could really solve it. I suppose. What was I missing?
Yeah, so. Yeah. It's and that's something we get. It's very common with people who've gone to the one-to-one program, is kind of they feel like they need a bit more of that personalized support directly from someone, and direct help, direct access to questions, but also people that are a bit stuck. Perhaps they've been using the app and they've got some benefit from the app, but they're a bit stuck and they need a bit more help. So
actually, just with that, I will say that which I might come later, but I think possibly part of the reason I was thinking that way is because I'd had for other sort of mental health issues earlier in my life, I'd had some therapy, which in a way there were quite a few certain things were parallels. So I think I was almost going into I sort of know this maybe, or I know what this is meant to do, etc., rather than feeling it or sort of having it reflected back. So
okay, that makes sense. So so you started with one-to-one coaching, and you started working with our head of therapy, Anna. So Anna is a very, very experienced audiologist. Anna's actually with us this evening. I'm going to bring her onto the panel in a second, because I'm sure you guys would love to hear from Anna. But just before I do bring Anna on, Thomas, tell us about your journey with Anna. How has she helped? How do you feel now?
Oh, I mean, I feel great now. So, and yeah, it's been wonderful. When I signed up, I wasn't sure whether it was going to be kind of quite a condensed time or gradually over a period of time. There was sort of, in a way, no time frame for how the sessions needed to go, which worked out really well in the end, because we sort of kept them quite regular to start with. And it sort of coincided, my sleep had got bad, and it somehow got a little bit better. And then I remember one session, it just timed probably with the worst night's sleep I had like that week, and I just was not sleeping. So that was a really good session, and the session in a way to catch me at that moment where I felt in that helpless state. I couldn't. I felt like my brain was not really working on its own. It needed someone else to sort of help it focus. So, and then gradually over the successive ones, as the space was able to get a little bit sort of further apart, and I was able to keep up with, it's a bit like my running app that I sort of, if I've got some sort of goal that I've got, and then I put in, and then gradually over a period of time, I build up. You do your exercises, you might build up your distance, you might build up this, etc. Build up your strength, I suppose. So, and I was able to then I'm not such a journaler, but I was able to sort of keep notes of what happened, what I thought, felt, gone through, and then sort of express that. And then Anna was able to sort of dissect that, and often, she was basically able to get just to the real point of what that meant, where it actually was, and give me license to also then own that as well. So sound.
Sorry, I muted myself.
No.
Always once or twice per meeting I do that. So just to kind of dig in on just kind of summarize there. So Anna kind of dug in on the really specific things you were struggling with with your tinnitus, gave you things that you could go away and practice, and then kind of, I suppose, held you to practicing those things between sessions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So one thing you did mention, and Anna, I'm going to bring you on in a second. One thing you did mention was you said you feel great now. Just tell us about how does great feel in context to your tinnitus? How do you, what does that, let's go into a bit more detail there. What does great feel like?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you said in the context of tinnitus, because because we're talking about tinnitus, so it's really good, because actually, there's a few other bits of stress there always is in life, but it's nice to be able to then take tinnitus out of maybe the rest of life, and maybe that's the reason I feel great in terms of tinnitus, because I'm able to separate it from the rest of life. So although there might be stress for me was so interlinked with the tinnitus, and because I just had no way to sort of separate either high anxiety or high stress from tinnitus. So tinnitus went up, and then that made me more stressed, and I couldn't deal with either. Whereas feeling great about tinnitus means that even if it's like I'm feeling stressed, and so then I might become aware of like, oh, there's that thing that does that thing, that noise or whatever. It's like, okay, fine, but that's dealt with. Don't need to deal with that. Like it's just there. It's a thing that's not for me to worry about. I'm going to be mindful in this moment on this thing that I need to sort of sort out, which is the stress of whatever task it is, etc. So I think it's not having another layer of fear when there's anything, even like going for a run. It sounds really stupid, but running was really, this was one of the things that sort of in 2022 took me to, because I was like, every time I was coming in from a run, even a not particularly sort of high tempo run, I was just, it was so strong, and it took so long for me to sort of deal with it. And I just didn't like that feeling of that. And in a way, I mean, I still come in, and sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, the ringing's a bit high because my heart rate's high, but that's now nothing to worry about, because my heart rate's going to go down, and everything's going to be fine, and I'll carry on and have my dinner, and then that'll be lovely. So there's sort of not having fear is what's great. I don't fear this thing anymore. So
So it sounds like hi, by the way, Anna. I'll pass over to you in a second, but just to finish on that point, Thomas, it sounds like you've changed how you're reacting to your tinnitus, so that if you do notice it doesn't bother you the way it did before, and it's not making you feel those horrible feelings that it made you feel before. And as a result of that, I suppose you're thinking about it less, you're noticing it less.
Exactly.
But if you do notice it, it's not a problem. Like, it's just there. It's one of those things that's just there, but it's not like for you. So that kind of leads me on. Welcome, Anna. Thanks so much for joining. So Anna is our lead therapist at Otto. Maybe I should pass over to introduce you, Anna, but Anna has kind of built this program from her many, many years of experience as a tinnitus specialist audiologist. So Anna, maybe you could just give a brief introduction.
Hello, everybody. It makes me feel really, really old, which I am, of course. Hey, Thomas, it's so good to see you. You're looking fantastic. It's really, really nice to hear how well you're doing. And I know that last time we spoke, we kind of finished on yep, you're good, you're getting things together, and it's lovely to see you. So thank you for coming and doing the webinar. It's great. And I think it's so important for people to hear the journey that people go through. And I think some of the things that you were just talking about just now, about having to practice, about the fear, about recognizing all those things, are so important. It is something that we learn as we go along, isn't it? And I think you've done really, really well. So for people who don't know me, I'm Anna Pugh, as Ed said. I'm a hearing therapist audiologist. I've been a hearing therapist audiologist for over 40 years, and I got to the point where I was looking for a way of spreading my therapy, and I came across Ed and George, who were looking for a therapist to help with their therapy. So it was great synchronicity. I've had tinnitus for over 20 years. I was a hearing therapist audiologist before, and when I had tinnitus, it completely took my legs away. I got completely overwhelmed by it. I couldn't cope, even though I knew all the things that I was supposed to do. And so the last 20 odd years have been blending therapies together, finding things that work on an individual basis, and finding ways of working through what works for some people, what doesn't work for other people, and finding the right way. But the underlying thing is to make sure that tinnitus doesn't get in the way of getting on with life and stop you from doing the things that you want to do. People like Thomas, who are musicians, of course, are trained to listen. So tinnitus is incredibly intrusive because it's using those skills that you've spent decades practicing and training yourself to do. And so it's, for people who spend their time listening, for people who spend their time with musicians, it's, oh, yes, I'd love to be a geologist, Steve. Steve has just put a note on saying, at first I thought you were a hearing therapist and a geologist. I live by the coast, so I could be a geologist, but I'm an audiologist. That's fantastic. I think I have a new profession. That's great. I've lost my train of thought now completely because now I want to be a geologist. I'm sorry, Ed. I'm leaving Otto. I'm going to go off and
Yeah, you've Steve, you've given her, you've put the idea in her head now. Great. Well, thanks, Anna, and it's great to have you joining us. So thank you. Thomas, before we kind of go on to the audience Q&A, so guys, if you have just joined, if you haven't asked a question yet, you've now got access to two really people that could be really helpful in your journey. So you've got access to Thomas, someone that has habituated, so you can ask questions directly to Thomas. But you've also got access to one of the UK's top tinnitus specialists here in Anna. So make the most of this opportunity. If you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A, and we will get round to them. This is a really good opportunity for you guys to get your questions answered. But before we do go on to the Q&A, Thomas, I'm sure there's many people that would be interested to know, like, what advice would you give to someone? So if you just take yourself back to when you were in 2020 and you were really struggling, it was feeling horrible, feeling really bad about things, what advice would you give to someone that's really struggling at the moment?
The thing that, yes, I should have thought about this question a bit more. What advice would I give? The thing that I would really, I would want to say, it is possible to feel better. Firstly, to say that. And then to say, listen to people that have managed to. And that was one of the most, all the exercises, everything on the app were wonderful, but actually one of the most useful bits of it is therapy was listening to the success stories on the app. And I actually made a point of not just putting them on like the radio, but really sitting down and listening to these narratives, and different ones sort of resonated in different ways, but just sort of going, okay, I recognize that thing that's going on. Okay, so there's a journey there. And then to reach out, I was, glad that I found an audiologist here, Sonia, who I think, obviously you sort of know Sonia from, and she recommended the app, who was excellent and really kind, and just was like sensitive, but here's a path to start on, suggested Otto, and then, that's where my journey went. So.
Thanks, Thomas. That's really good advice. And I think if I could summarize there with the two things, firstly is don't lose hope. All the things you read online will really put you in a place where you want to feel like you've got no hope, but it is possible to come out the other side of this and stop tinnitus impacting your life. And the second thing is that learn from others. These success stories, as well as giving you hope, you will, as you said, you will see similarities in others' journeys, and it's important to learn from those similarities and just empathize with what others are going through. Okay, great. So Thomas, let's go on to the Q&A. So thanks for your questions, guys. So Nancy Danny has asked a question. Thanks, Danny. What would you say has been the single most important factor in your journey of habituation?
I would say for me was in the therapy sort of being, I think the phrase I often use these days is like being seen or something like that, but sort of the validity of what I felt being sort of recognized and held, and then a sort of journey to take that feeling to sort of let it go and replace it with positive steps. But it's that moment of just, yeah, which is thanks to Anna. So it all sounds very gushy, but it is that I suppose is the part of therapy. So to be seen and to allow yourself to be vulnerable in that place. So
yeah.
And it is a very vulnerable place to be open to acknowledge your feelings and to give yourself permission to feel. We spend so much time suppressing our feelings and not acknowledging them. And so sometimes we have to give ourselves permission to take some time for ourselves and to acknowledge our feelings, and then learn to reflect on that. And that can take some sort of support and some coaching sometimes, because it's not something that we're often used to doing. And I think that's a really important point, Thomas, that sometimes we have to give ourselves license, as you said earlier, to do that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Yeah, completely agree. Okay, so next question from Nancy. Thomas, what are your favorite activities in the app? What's helped you in the app the most?
In the app, one of there were certain visualizations that really sort of helped me in terms of placing the sound. I think one of them was in the box, and then in terms of spirals, and as a practical sort of exercise, I found that really useful. I often did that before I went to sleep as well, just as a way of sort of meditating it or mindfully placing it somewhere else. So the other thing I found, although I don't sleep with it, what I found for work, and I still use it now, sometimes depending on where I'm at or what I need to do, but I really found exploring the different sounds that are on there, like how I never would have thought how important it was to work with restaurant clatter going behind me, but I found that really, and I think that's probably because I'm now in quite a quiet, been lucky being able to turn my little garage into a little studio, so I'm often working when I'm sort of doing admin at home, but I used to be, when I lived in London, I would often be at a coffee shop or something like that, so I was used to having that, and actually I found that quite nice to have just a little bit of clatter behind there. So just really exploring those sounds for different moments. I wouldn't put that one on before I'm going to sleep, of course, but it really helped me focus when I had like loads of emails to write or something.
Yeah, thanks, great advice. We always recommend, guys, if you've got the Otto app, explore the sounds and find a sound that works for you. Don't worry about listening to a sound for 6 hours a day, or doesn't matter. Just find a sound that you find relaxing and you find beneficial. Doesn't matter what type of tinnitus you've got, just find a sound that you find helpful. So Thomas, one more question for you, and then we've got some really interesting questions for Anna. Really quick one. How many sessions did you do with Anna?
I think I did 6.
6 sessions. Great. And Anna, that's kind of a normal amount, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. We do a 6 sessions is fairly sort of standard. Some people need to sort of see us fortnightly or weekly for a short period of time, and then spread those sessions out. I think, Thomas, we did that, didn't we? We did sort of quite intensive, and then we spaced them out to allow you some time to
Yeah.
embed what you were doing, but also get some sort of real world experience of working with some of the
Mm.
techniques, and then checking in and seeing how you're doing. And that's pretty common.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Anna, really good question here from Deborah. Thank you, Deborah, for asking this. Have you ever had a client that you couldn't help? What were the barriers that stopped them from succeeding?
Gosh, that's a really interesting question. I'd love to say no, but the reality is that some people are not ready. Some people are not ready for therapy. They're not at that point where they want therapy. What they want is a quick fix. They want somebody to fix their tinnitus, to take their tinnitus away. And I can't do that. The only proven cure, if you like, is habituation. And hearing aids and therapy have been the only proven cure for that. And some people aren't ready to hear that.
Mm.
So I have had people who are not ready, and that's fine. It's difficult for me because obviously, as a hearing therapist, as an audiologist, I want to help everybody, but the reality is that some people just don't want to hear that yet. They can't hear that yet. They want somebody to fix them. They want a drug. They want hearing aids. They want an operation. They want a magical cure, and they're not ready to hear all of those things. Um, but I'd say the majority of people that I've worked with have definitely progressed. They've definitely learned to habituate. They've definitely learned the understanding of what that means. Sometimes it can take longer than others. Some people can be really quick. Some people can be really slowly. And there are extremes. Some people find that the tinnitus isn't very debilitating. Other people find that their tinnitus really takes them away from their sense of self and their environment. We had a couple of people within Otto and Otto's one-to-one coaching program where, when I first met them, one of our patients had spent 18 months in a darkened room because she was so terrified of sound and light. And her son was even putting food outside the door for her, so she wasn't even going outside or downstairs into the kitchen to eat. And when I last spoke to her, and it took some time, but when I last spoke to her, she was in the garden in the sunshine, and only for very short periods of time, but she was in the garden in the sunshine, and she was getting her life back. Um, Other people, aren't so extreme. So the answer is there will be some people that I can't help, or that we can't help, but not many. Um, and hopefully, even when we can't fix them, they can see that they can work through that's not what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That might not be the answer you want, but that's the answer that you got.
I will say, Anna, you're very modest. It's a very, very small number of people that it's not effective. I mean, if you look at, I think we looked at some data a couple of weeks that our team put together. Over 90% of people notice a significant improvement when they work with us on the one-to-one program. So the data shows that it is. But of course, Anna's right. There are some people that, for whatever for the reasons that Anna described, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah.
So
If you're on a program, if you're doing the work, then, as Ed said, 90% of people really notice the difference and can really get better. But there will always be a few people that aren't ready to do the program, aren't ready to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Anna. Okay, maybe a good question for you, Thomas. So, question from Jolie: does the sound go as you habituate and slowly disappear? Does the sound of the tinnitus disappear and when you're habituating?
So, what's that? Sorry?
For you personally, I suppose.
Me personally, it's not that it's disappeared. My awareness of it has changed, so I'm not aware of it. I can be aware of it, and then I have the tools to be able to become not aware of it in a way, because of my training how my mind through the exercises, habituating to be able to not let it be present. It's about closing the door on it basically and going, okay, you're there behind the door, but actually I have the ability to close the door on the tinnitus, if that makes sense. And actually, can I say, you asked me what feels great earlier, and it just made, I've just seen on the chat, although I haven't got it in front of me now, but someone mentioned about being a musician and finding it debilitating. And as a point of, again, encouragement, one of the moments with, when I was like, I think it was before the last session with Anna, and I'd been to a concert, I've been to a few concerts over the year, a couple of orchestral ones, where I was getting used to it not impacting, but it still was. But I was able to go to this concert just as an audience member, and I didn't, for that whole, with a symphony orchestra, it was something like Mahler 5, even in the quietest, most beautiful slow movement, I was able to just be there with the music and not aware. It's only afterwards I was like, oh, I didn't notice the tinnitus, and then I was like, oh, there it is. Oh, okay. And then I was like, right, now I'm going to get my gin and tonic. So I was able, but it was only, it wasn't there. Whereas that was the first time for quite a while that I've been to a concert where I had not, where it hadn't at least somewhere reared its ugly head, as it were. It was, yeah. And that was feeling great.
Great, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Thomas. That must have felt, that must have felt really good.
Yeah.
After all that time of feeling really rubbish. Okay, so we've got time for one more question. I'm sorry, guys, I've not got round to answering all your questions. We do these webinars every week, so please come along to the next webinar, make a note of your question and bring it along to the next one. We'll do it at the same time next Thursday. So question from Graham, question for you, Anna. What strategies work when you wake up and your tinnitus is really intrusive first thing in the morning?
Yeah, that's a really tough one because lots of people experience that. So there are ways of refocusing, recognizing that it's, yes, that's my tinnitus, that means I'm awake, and changing your mindset about, oh, rather than, oh no, my tinnitus is really loud. It's like, oh yeah, my tinnitus is that. Okay, so today I've got to do X, Y, and Z, and just change your focus. The other way of doing it is to use sound therapy just as you come into from being asleep, just as you come into that cycle of coming into consciousness. If we play music or a sound just as you're coming into consciousness, very quietly, so the brain is listening to it, it tends to help your brain focus on the sound rather than on your tinnitus. When you come into consciousness, you're not quite aware of the tinnitus as much, and sometimes for some people that helps. The issue around rumination before you go to sleep and good preparation and getting good sleep. Rest is so important. If we don't get enough proper deep sleep and rest, then it's hard to cope with tinnitus because we just don't have the mental and physical energy to cope. So good sleep hygiene is really important. You'll find some really good tips on the app. There's some nice sort of sleep preparation. There's a really nice thing called a mindfulness trains exercise where you can dump some of your worries before you go to sleep. So there's some little tips and things that we always recommend.
Thank you, Anna. That's a really nice summary. So I'm going to tell you guys about how you can access this one-to-one program that Otto has created, because we've had a few people asking about it. How can you get access to the program that Thomas has been through? How can you get the same results as Thomas? So this one-to-one program that we offer, we built to include everything that you need to habituate in the shortest space of time as possible. So if you want to get to where Thomas is, this is a really good fit for you. So I'm actually just going to share my screen and share a slide that I've created. So the Auto One-to-One program includes the digital CBT program in the app. So you'll get full access to the app. You'll get two, specialist typo there, specialist sessions, I should say, per month. So 45 minutes each. And you'll work through the problems that you're struggling with. So it's very, very personalized to you. You'll get this custom habituation plan. So before you get started, we ask a questionnaire. We take you through some questions about your experience with tinnitus, and then we'll personalize the plan for you. And then between each session, your specialist will recommend sessions for you to go away and practice. And then you just know you basically don't have to make a decision about what to do. We just tell you what to do. You go and practice it, and then you go away. You turn up to the next session in 2 weeks. You'll also get access to the success story. So we'll send you a success story to your inbox each month. You also get priority access to ask people like Thomas questions in these webinars, and then of course priority support from our team. So this costs £249 per month. If you're in the US, that's $319. As I said, there's over 90% success rate here. So we're getting really, really good results from this. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. If anyone has any questions about the one-to-one program. But if you want to get access to a specialist like Anna, this is a really good opportunity to do so. If you do want to sign up, I'm going to put a link in the chat that you can use to sign up this evening. If you sign up, guys, within the next 24 hours, you're going to get 2 additional add-ons here. First thing you'll get is a one-on-one call with me. And I can tell you about my journey with Habituation as the founder of Otto. The second thing you're going to get is we're actually going to give away a year's access to the app if you sign up within the next 24 hours. So this is a really, really good opportunity for you guys to get access to the app for a year, and also to get access to, if you wanted to ask me any questions about my journey with Habituation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the sign up link in the chat. This is here. So there's a question here. How is this different from the 90-day program? Great question. So the 90-day program offers group coaching sessions. So you'll be working with a group of other people over that period. And you'll be working with a group and a specialist and a group of 10 to 20 other people with tinnitus. This is one-on-one. So this is one-on-one help directly with a specialist, which means that you get, obviously, the difference there is you get the more personalized support. This is a really good opportunity for you guys. So if you do want to sign up, please do sign up within the next 24 hours. We've got slots for next week. We can get you started really quickly. I'm going to send you guys an email with all this information. So check your emails after this webinar, and there'll be a link that you can click on in the email also to get signed up. Whilst we get finished up, I just wanted to say, Thomas, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure, I speak on behalf of everyone here, I found your journey really, really inspiring, and it's been great to hear about the success you've had. So thank you very much for joining us. It's really appreciated.
Thanks for inviting me. It's been lovely to be able to hopefully give some sort of support to some other people as well. So, and
thank you, Anna, for joining as always. It's been you've made a massive difference to, must be thousands of people with tinnitus now. So really, thank you. It's been great for you to join us. Question from Raymond: do you have to sign up for a certain amount of months for the one-on-one? No, you can do, it's a monthly subscription. You can cancel anytime. If you want to do just 1 month and 2 sessions, that would be fine.
Okay.
Great. Go ahead, Anna.
Can I just say thank you, Ed, and thank you, Thomas. It's been lovely to see you, and it is so important for people to hear real real people's stories. As you said, one of the things that you really benefited from was the success stories, and I think that it makes such a difference to hear real world examples, and I think that that's really powerful. So thank you for your time as well. And thank you for Ed for letting me bounce into your into your
No,
meeting today. But I wanted to come and say hello to Thomas, if nothing else.
Great. Thanks, Anna. So if anyone wants to stick around, there's a few questions about the one-to-one program, but Thomas and Anna, please feel free to head off. Thank you for joining us. But if anyone wants to stick around, I've got a few questions to answer in the about the one-to-one program. But thank you very much, everyone. So Mark, is it just a one-on-one? No, it's not. So this one-on-one program, the one-to-one program, is each month you'll have 2 sessions with a tinnitus specialist like Anna each month. So the cost includes 2 of these 45-minute sessions per month on a rolling, ongoing basis. With the 90-day program, you get I think some of you got the introductory call with me, and you get just the 1 group coaching session per month. So that's why there's the difference in price. I hope that helps, Mark. If you wanted to change from if you've just recently signed up to the 90-day package and you wanted to change over to this, you could do that. You could claim your 30-day money back guarantee. We'd refund you, and you could sign up to this as well.